Hey guys. Um, so a lot of you have been asking about things with Iris and how CPS got involved and all that kind of stuff. I've been wanting to keep that off of this channel because I've wanted to focus on the pedogate stuff of my personal history from what I've seen and experienced and all that kind of stuff. But I needed some time to come to the conclusion that my past is directly tied to what is going on right now with my daughter. So I want to get into that a bit right now. On on mid-April, I want to say it was 16th. I have the date and records over there. I'm not gonna get up and get it. But in April, let's say 16th, I had a severe sudden onset headache. I have a very high pain tolerance, and when this headache came on, it was bad enough for me to start screaming and crying. That says a lot. So I actually had Scott call 911 for an ambulance. I don't like doctors, I don't like medicine, so for it to be bad enough for me to call 911, that should say something to you. He went to the hospital, and we didn't find a cause for my headache, but we did find out that I was pregnant, very recently pregnant. Now, my flashbacks had started coming back for, I don't know, maybe a year or so at this point, probably not even 2 years yet. But I knew what was going on, and I knew that my child was going to be targeted. As soon as I found out I was pregnant, the blood completely drained from my face because I knew, and I knew I had to make a decision. On a personal level, I believe that life starts at a heartbeat. And a fetus's heartbeat doesn't start until it can start as early as 23 days. I know when I conceived, so I had a little bit of time, maybe a week or two, to figure out whether I was going to keep the baby and risk them falling into the hands of CPS at the time, or fall into the hands of the cabal or CPS or whoever you want to refer to them, or abort her. Obviously, I chose to keep her. So, as soon as we found out I was pregnant, I switched to a completely organic diet. I ate fully organic, I changed my lifestyle, I got more active while still being safe for pregnancy. I really lit a fire under myself to make sure that I did the best I could for her. I tried to find a midwife because I wanted to do as natural of a birth as possible. I didn't want much medical intervention unless it was completely necessary. That's a whole different story on its own. Don't ever use signature OBGYN. Don't do it. Don't do it. They don't listen to you. Don't do it. Anyway, December 28th, I guess, 27th or 28th, I went out to dinner with Scott, or I'm sorry, lunch with Scott's family to celebrate Christmas and being pregnant. And that was the first time in my entire pregnancy that I ate fried food. I figured I'm 9 months along, she's due any day, I can have a little bit of fried food. So I had grilled cheese and mozzarella sticks. Well, that day I got really bad gas pains. So I thought I was constipated or just gassy because I hadn't had fried food in so long. Well, December 29th at about 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm going back and forth to the bathroom, trying to go to the bathroom. Nothing's really coming out. And I'm on the toilet, and something felt really off between my legs. So I felt between my legs, and I realized, oh shit, I'm crowning. So I penguin walked to the bed, vaulted onto the bed. Scott called the paramedics, called 911, and Iris was out before the paramedics even came. I had no idea I was in labor. I had no idea I was in labor until she started crowning. So yeah, we went to Howard County General Hospital, where Iris was checked, 5 pounds, 12 ounces. She was more or less perfectly healthy. She had a problem with her potassium, I think it was. Now, I don't know if she actually had a problem with her potassium or not because I never saw any of those blood results. So, she had a problem with her potassium, and we were told that she needed to be given a bottle because her potassium was low. So, against what I wanted, I gave her a bottle. And she initially took the bottle very, very well. She took it really well. And we were discharged on December 31st. Sorry, I should probably back up a step. When we found out I was pregnant, Scott and I also had to have a conversation about my PTSD, my flashbacks, and how to handle it. I'm not one for taking medication. I didn't want to take medication. I was taking marijuana to help me with my symptoms and everything at the time. And we had talked about whether, how to handle that. If I have a flashback or an episode, and, and what I was going to do for that, whether I was going to try and handle it without marijuana and potentially hurt Iris, or use marijuana in the cases necessary to make sure I stay calm, to make sure nothing happens to her. And this was something we had to talk about and we had to decide on. So when I went to GBMC, I tested an unconfirmed positive for marijuana. Now, what that means is that the amount of marijuana in my system, or CBD, THC, whatever, that was in my system at the time was so low that it didn't hit the threshold for them to call CPS. They called CPS anyway. So CPS came out, looked at the house, blah, blah, blah. We were discharged to go home. Everything was great. So we start bringing Iris to a pediatrician, and she gained her birth weight back in the first week. So that was really great. But I made the mistake of not complaining. The doctor asked me if I had any concerns, and I said, well, I have nipple soreness, but that's common with breastfeeding. Didn't think anything of it. Well, he said to feed her every 2 to 3 hours. Now, I was feeding her on demand at this point. So what that means is that whenever she would show hunger cues by either looking for the breast or putting her hands to her mouth, I would feed her. And she liked that a lot. She was fed on demand. She liked being fed on demand. No problems, no complaints. I was actually thrilled with it. But he said to feed her every 2 to 3 hours rather than on demand. I wasn't comfortable with this. I continued feeding her on demand until she started gaining weight very, very slowly, and her weight gain slowed down a lot. And he once again said, feed her every 2 to 3 hours. Don't feed her on demand. So at this point, I have Iris, who is not gaining weight as quickly as she's supposed to, being told to be fed less by the current doctor she was seeing. That didn't seem right to me. So I fed her every 2 to 3 hours for about a week or two. And then we came in, and she didn't gain any weight. She wasn't gaining any weight at all. Her weight gain completely plateaued. And he said, well, I'm still concerned about her weight, so keep feeding her every 2 to 3 hours rather than on demand. I said, fuck it. She's not gaining weight. She gained weight more when I was feeding her on demand as opposed to now. I'm going to feed her on demand. Well, he ended up not yelling at me, but, scolding me for feeding her on demand rather than on a schedule. I didn't agree with this, and I ended up dropping him because I felt it was really lunacy to say this baby isn't gaining weight, but feed them less. It made no sense to me. So he also recommended that we give her the bottle. We had stopped giving her the bottle after about the first month because she wasn't taking it anymore. She would just kind of chew on the nipple and spit the formula out. She would not take the bottle. So when he told him that she was not taking the bottle, he said, keep trying. Not once did he check to see if she was actually taking the bottle or not. Not once did she observe her taking the bottle. Nothing. So we went to find a different doctor. And go to find a different doctor who says the same exact thing. Feed her every 2 to 3 hours and give her the bottle. Not taking the bottle, keep trying. I tried feeding her every 2 to 3 hours. It wasn't working. Do it anyway. I said no. Fuck it. And I received the summary from that doctor, from that visit. Now, on that summary, not once does it express any concerns about Iris's weight. In fact, under concerns, it says none. I can show that to you if you want. I'm not going to pull that out. That's digging through my binder a bit. So, a few hours after the appointment was April 2nd, I believe. I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, shortly after that appointment, a few hours later, she calls me. And she says, I'm looking over my notes and I'm really concerned about Iris's weight. Excuse me. I want you to bring her to the ER. But wait until Thursday. Now, mind you, this appointment occurred on a Monday. So the doctor tells me, one, in the notes that she gives me, no concerns about Iris's weight. A few hours later, she calls. She's concerned. She wants Iris brought to the ER. But wait 4 days. No. That didn't sound right either. Now, mind you, I spent the first 3 months of Iris's life literally sitting Indian style, holding her or with her in my lap, with her pretty much on my tit the entire time. And I had no problems with this at all whatsoever. So, I don't remember where I was going with that, but anyway. So we had a follow-up appointment scheduled with this doctor for that next Monday, the next week, which I believe was April 6th. And when we had this conversation with her, when she told us, I bring her to the ER, but wait until Thursday. I was like, no, I'm not doing this. So I fired that pediatrician too. On that night, on April 6th, after I fired her, CPS comes to my house with police officers, bangs on my door, and says, we're taking your daughter. Because I didn't feed my daughter less, like they wanted, because she wouldn't take the bottle, and because a lunatic doctor did not express any concerns about Iris's weight, but then wants us to go to the ER, but wait 4 days. If it's an emergency, you don't wait 4 days. Oh, sorry. And part of the first 3 months that I spent with her, I spent every moment with her. She was active, alert, aware, awake, and very, very, very responsive. She showed no signs of distress. I watched her urine and her fecal output very, very, very closely, because when you have one of the first indicators of something being wrong is when it's in your poop. So I watched her poop very, very closely because I knew she wasn't gaining weight as quickly as she was supposed to. I knew that. But I was also keeping a very close eye on her for any behavioral issues or any indicators that she might not be getting the nutrients she's supposed to have. So they come on April 6th to take her. Scott and I both ultimately said over our dead bodies, and they ended up bringing out, as they termed it, it was a 5-hour standoff in front of the house to take my daughter. There were 2 police vans outside, plus a bunch of police cars. The supervisor, Tiffany Brown, and the caseworker, Jaslyn Jones. Ultimately, we had agreed that a paramedic could come in and evaluate Iris. We allowed this paramedic to come in. However, when this paramedic came in, they also sent in a social worker with the paramedic, without our consent, without our permission. So, the paramedic ultimately decided that Iris was not in any active distress and that she could stay with us. CPS ordered that we go to a new pediatrician on Monday. So we went to see a new pediatrician on Monday, who ultimately said the exact same things as the first 2. Feed her every 2 to 3 hours and give her the bottle. She's not taking the bottle. Keep trying. Now, while I was live streaming the standoff on Friday, a number of people recommended that we have Iris evaluated for tongue and lip ties, which is an extra piece of skin under the top lip and under the tongue, which can cause a baby to exert more effort than necessary while eating. We brought her to a specialist who diagnosed and treated her for both. We finally had a solution to why she wasn't gaining weight, and I was ecstatic. I nearly fainted in the office because I needed to know what was going on because she wasn't gaining weight. Now, we had agreed with the third pediatrician on the 9th. that if Iris did not gain any weight by that next Thursday, we would bring her to the ER. Thursday comes around and she actually lost an ounce because the tongue and lip tie is a minor surgery and it's very usual for a baby to not want to eat afterwards. So they gave us a little syringe to put formula in her mouth and she lost an ounce. So we had agreed that if she did not gain weight, we'd bring her to the hospital. So we brought her to the hospital. Before we did, I asked the doctor, I said, look, she just had the surgery. She's sore. She's going to be sore for a few days. She's been running around like crazy the past few days. Can we please just wait the weekend and wait until next Monday to let her have the chance to stabilize and to feed normally? No. Go to the hospital now. Fine. So I ultimately end up getting a sort of threatening email from CPS saying that if we don't go to the hospital, that not explicitly saying if you don't go to the hospital, we're going to take her, but it was insinuated. So, sorry, hold on. So, we bring Iris to the hospital. And this right here is April 12th. This is the day that Iris was admitted to Greater Baltimore Medical Center, GBMC. You can see here in the highlighted area that there is one part where her numbers were off. Now, I'm not a medical professional. I can't pronounce all these words, so some of them I'm not going to bother trying to pronounce. But you can see here that this was April 12th is highlighted in blue, and the pink highlighted area is where there are off numbers, where they're not within the preferred range. That was her blood work when she was admitted to GBMC. Now, while we were at GBMC, we got her blood work from the first day, and I believe the second or third day, where either 3 or 4 numbers were off. So when Iris was admitted to the hospital, 1 number was off. Day 2, 3 numbers were off. We went to the hospital and we agreed that we needed to figure out some way to help her gain weight because she wasn't gaining weight the way that she should, and we needed to figure out an alternative form of supplementation because she would not take the bottle, refused to take the bottle. It's noted by multiple doctors that she had a behavioral aversion to the bottle, as in she didn't want the bottle, she wanted mommy's boob. So, after about 10 days there, let me back up a bit. On April 19th or 20th, the speech and language pathologist that we were working with recommended a supplemental nursing system, which is a bottle that hangs over the mother's shoulder and has a tube that drapes down onto the mother's breast and attaches to the nipple. So that way the baby can get formula while being given breast milk. And Iris reluctantly took to it. She didn't like it, but she tolerated it. So that was great because we found an alternative form of supplementation that she would take, which means that we were one step closer to leaving. She was gaining weight. Everything was going the way it was supposed to. Everything was great. April 23rd comes around, and we have a discharge meeting with GBMC. And at this discharge meeting, they gave us a few stipulations. One was to see a pediatrician, the pediatrician after we got out. Another one was to see the speech and language specialist. One was to go with the infants and toddlers referral. Now that's to check her development and all this kind of stuff. And the fourth one was to cooperate with DSS, CPS. Now, while we were in the hospital, I was emailing both Jaslyn Jones and Tiffany Brown constantly. I have email exchanges with them where they thank me multiple times for my cooperation. After this discharge meeting, I made an appointment with Iris's pediatrician, and before we went into GBMC, I had an appointment already set up for a speech and language pathologist. I have all the emails and I have these appointments confirmed via text messages, as well as printed out and ready to go for the court. Now, the infants and toddlers thing, that was supposed to be done by the social worker at the hospital. I did not have any evidence of our agreement to that. I do have evidence of the other 3. So, everything is great. However, we agree to everything. And if you want me to show you, I have the medical records where it says that we agreed to the plan of care, we agreed to the discharge plan. However, we're told that Iris is not allowed to leave the hospital until we are cleared by CPS to leave. So we were effectively being held hostage against our will in the hospital by CPS. False imprisonment. Now, I'll get into that later. Now, on April 25th, mind you, we had the discharge meeting on April 23rd. We agreed to the discharge plan. April 25th, CPS comes in and says, you didn't agree to the discharge plan. We're taking her. Now, in the medical records, I have it stated that we did agree to the discharge plan. I also have it stated by the chief of staff at the Greater Baltimore Medical Center that they were having, and I quote, ongoing non-transparent conversations with DSS about Iris and her family. In other words, the social workers, DSS/CPS, was lying to Iris's doctors. Then they lied when they took her. So they lied to Iris's doctors and they lied to the court about why they took her. Or not even about the why they took her. They lied about the fact about our agreement to the discharge plan. Now, you saw the blood work. April 12th, once again. Now, and part of their claim was that we did not agree to the discharge plan, which put Iris at risk for malnourishment, starvation, and possibly death. This, I'm not a medical professional. This does not look like a malnourished child. Yes, there is a number off. We can all see it. This does not look like a severely malnourished child at risk for death. Now, what I'm about to show you is the blood work collected on April 26th, the day after CPS took my daughter. This was collected on April 26th. This was Iris in CPS's care. If April 12th is malnourishment, then what is this? Take a good look, guys. I'm holding it as still as possible, so I apologize if you can't read it. So, according to CPS, April 12th was malnourished, risk of starvation, and possibly death. This is in CPS's custody. This is in CPS's care. This is what they consider to be healthy. Now, I would also like to point out that they vaccinated her against our wishes without our consent illegally. I also have the form that a certain Dr. Michelle Chudow, CHUDOW, signed off on vaccinating my daughter. Now, the vast majority of their case is based on the testimony of Dr. Michelle Chudow. Dr. Michelle Chudow also happens to be the medical director of the Child Advocacy Center of Baltimore County. In other words, she is the head of the Medical Kidnap Division of CPS in Baltimore County. This was all done at Michelle Chudow's demands. This was sanctioned and ordered by her. Now, this woman also never saw Iris, never saw Scott, never saw myself. This woman also decided that she also wanted to write in her statement to the court that, now, hold on, I don't know if this was a statement that she submitted to the court. This is a statement that, was in Iris's medical records. And this is a statement that she gave Iris's current pediatrician, that I have delusions of being trafficked. I find it very interesting that the head of the Medical Kidnap Division of CPS, the head of all the trafficking that happens within Baltimore, not all the trafficking, but you know what I mean, of the vast majority of the trafficking that happens within Baltimore County, says that a victim of trafficking is delusional. Now, once again, Iris in my care, breastfed from an organic eating mother. She spent the first 3 months of her life until GBMC took her with almost every single moment in my arms. And this is Iris in CPS's care. Tell me, if her blood work in my care was malnourishment and neglect, what is this? Now, I am well aware of the very distinct possibility that I am an Iris, that I was taken from a loving and caring and supportive family under false pretenses and adopted into the family that I was put into for sexual and experimental purposes. I am well aware that it is very, very likely that Dr. Michelle Trudeau planned to do the same thing. Now, I do want to mention one thing. While I was at GBMC, I got to speak with the chief of staff there. And I asked her if it was usual, if this was common for CPS to fight this hard to take a child. I don't know I don't know the exact meaning of this, but she said that she has never had anybody fight this hard before. Which means one of two things. She's either never had anybody fight this hard before to keep their child, which I find hard to believe, or she's never had anybody in CPS fight this hard to take a child, which I find more likely. So, I want you guys to be aware. And if you have or are dealing with CPS, and I am terribly sorry if you are, we are doing everything we can to crack them open and to end this, because this is not okay. If you maintain your parental rights, get medical records, get all of them. Do not allow anybody to tell you no. Your medical records may save your family. And it may help you build a very nice case against CPS and whatever social workers were involved in your case. So, guys, CPS is a direct pipeline for this human trafficking epidemic that we're dealing with. They are directly involved. And while I can't prove it, I am pretty sure that things have gotten worse since the pipelines out of the country have been cut off. So, know your rights. Do not let CPS in without a warrant. Do not let them take your child without a warrant. Any conversations you have with them, record them. Record all of them. There is legal precedent, especially Gilk versus Kniffy, where you can record public officials. Cover yourselves. They may come in and pretend to be your friends and pretend to be all nice. No, we're just checking in on you. We're just making sure everything is okay. This is what CPS does to healthy children. Yes, Iris was skinny. Yes, she was not gaining weight as quickly as she was supposed to. But she was not in danger. She was not as severely malnourished and at risk for death as CPS might want you to believe. So guys, if they did this to me, they can do this to anyone. They are targeting everything. They are targeting our jobs, our homes, our children. If they've done this to me, they can do this to you too. And it's time. It's time that all of us rise up and say no more. They've targeted our livelihoods. They've targeted our homes. And now they are targeting our children. Your children. They've come after me. They might come after you too. And the only way that we are going to stop them is if we all come together and say enough is enough. We're not putting up with this anymore. Now, I do want to end this on a note by saying there are plenty of social workers and I'll come back to that. There is also one law that I do want you all to know about. There is the Adoption and Safe Families Act of 1997, passed by our dear, dear Bill Clinton. What this law does is it gives social workers monetary bonuses, financial incentive for each child that they adopt out. In other words, they get bonuses for taking your child and adopting them into another family. They are paid to destroy families and destroy lives. Please, protect yourselves, protect your families, and protect your children. Because CPS is coming after us. They're coming after our children. They're coming after your children. Now, guys, this might be hard for you, but a lot of you have asked if there's anything that you can do for me to help me with this. What you can do for me is talk to your friends and family. Ask them, have you ever had CPS come to your house? Have you ever had CPS come and talk to you? Why? Was it an anonymous complaint? Did something actually happen? Did they take your child? Did you get your child back? You need to have these conversations. Don't be afraid. Don't be ashamed. Don't be embarrassed. You need to be strong. And you need to be able to have these uncomfortable conversations. And I would love to be proven wrong. I would love to be proven wrong. But I'm afraid that there are far more families that have been harassed by CPS to one extent or another than not. And I think that if you go out and talk to your friends and family and ask them if CPS has had any involvement with you or your children, you'll find out that the answer is probably far more often yes than no. So in closing, I do want to say that there are good social workers. There are good people in that system. There are people who genuinely do it to make the world a better place and to help and protect the children. And you can probably tell. Just like most of the time, I'm sure you can tell when somebody's full of shit. You can probably tell when somebody's a good social worker compared to when they're a shitty one. And for those of you who are good and who have done this for the right reasons, thank you. Thank you. You are good people. You know the ones who aren't. And going forward, I bet you money that some of these indictments are for CPS, are for the directors of the medical kidnap divisions. I bet you. And it's going to, shit rolls downhill. The bad ones are going to get outed as well. Good ones, now's your time to stand up. You will be rewarded, you will be thanked, you will be appreciated for you being good. Bad ones, you better get ready. You're going to burn. You're going to burn real bad. This is not okay in any shape or form. If this was Iris's blood work when she was admitted to the hospital, okay. Okay. I can understand. For this to be her blood work the day after they took her. Now let's go over this. Perjury. Harassment. Assault. Because when you vaccinate a child without their parents' consent, that is legally considered assault. False imprisonment. You held us captive in the hospital, knowing that Iris was more or less perfectly healthy. And kidnapping. Jaslyn Jones, Tiffany Brown, Michelle Trudeau. And you're also on my radar, Ben. You are so much on my radar. You're going to. You're going to jail too. And I'm going to make sure that you are all held accountable for each and every one of your crimes. Now, I do want to say something else. I might get a little bit of shit for this, but I don't care. Mr. President, this is to you. Thank you for your executive order on December 21st of 2017, freezing the assets of people who have been charged with crimes against humanity and people who are suspected of crimes against humanity. You are a brilliant man, and thank you. I will make sure that I take full advantage of that going forward. They wanted financial compensation for destroying families. They're going to end up with nothing, and they deserve it. Anyway, you guys have gotten to see a little bit of my protective side, my aggressive side, to a degree, not really. But we've gone mainstream. This movement has gone mainstream. Now I want to take a minute to also thank Fiona Barnett, Sarah Ashcraft, and Isaac Cappy. Thank you. Your strength and your ability to come out and come forward is going to save so many children. So many people. You are heroes. And I will never be able to express my gratitude enough. So thank you. Anyway, I apologize for how long this got. I didn't expect it to be this long, but I'll probably do a video on the incident with the police when they came fairly soon. I'm not sure when, and I will be getting those police videos. So I'm looking forward to putting that online and letting the Anons, please, by all means, have fun. Go to town. Do what you do best. Save the world. Thank you. Where we go one, we go all. Be well.